at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We gotta unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Tuesday, December 17th. I'm Dean Obeidallah, as always, here to be your MBFF. And today is my birthday. So if you have not taken up my offer to be your MBFF on my birthday, I hope at least today you'll say, okay, Dean, for at least today, I'll be your MBFF. And I'll go follow you on Twitter if I'm on Twitter at Dean Obeidallah. Or go to Facebook.com/Dean of Radio and like the Facebook page. That's all I want. And tonight is impeachment eve. And not a creature is stirring except for Trump, who is freaking out. Oh my gosh. We'll talk about his crazy letter just a teeny bit in a little bit from now. Spoiler alert, innocent people don't write panicky letters. Don't do it. So right now, as Michelangelo was just saying, there's protests around the nation. Nobody's above the law. It's called, organized by various groups from MoveOn.org to Indivisible to Tom Steyer's group. And it's starting in New York City at 6:30. But if you're interested, you can go to TrumpisNotAboveTheLaw.org or NeedToImpeach.com. And you'll see you can sign up, get out there. If you go out there, if you're at one of these events, give us a call. 866-997-4748. Tell us what you're seeing, what's going on. How's the enthusiasm? How's the excitement? What is going on out there? First, we need a little humor. Here's Colbert last night on Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani. And folks, clearly Donald Trump has promised Giuliani a pardon. But to remind everybody, that's only for federal crime. So I'm hoping state DAs are looking at the crimes that Rudy has committed and they can charge him. So here's clip number one, Colbert.
Trump's got a wild card in his fight against impeachment. Personal lawyer and grandpa being discreetly checked to see if he's still alive.
Check him.
Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani was recently in Ukraine meeting with disgraced prosecutors and trying to dig up more dirt on the Bidens. Rudy claims we have found multiple crimes the Bidens have committed: extortion, bribery, and money laundering. And to back it up, he had a handwritten diagram titled bribery, parenthesis, crime. Oh, I'm sorry. That's his to-do list. Wow. Today, Trump was asked about Giuliani's trip, and he was all for it.
Mr. President, how much has Giuliani shared with you about his recent trip to Ukraine?
No, not too much, but he's a very great crime fighter. He was probably the greatest crime fighter over the last 50 years.
I'm sorry, you can't call him a crime fighter just because he occasionally wears his underpants on the outside.
Oh, wow.
A Giuliani crime fighter. Yeah, that was a long time ago, folks. That's before Donald Trump corrupted him and radicalized him into a criminal, and that's what he is. So last night was an interesting night. Two reasons. One, a first happened on the show. If you were listening live, you heard it. In the third hour, I had Jamira Burley here in studio, and surrounding us are various TV sets. One's CNN, one's MS, and one's Fox News. And I'm interviewing Jamira, and we're chatting, we're having a conversation, and I stop mid-sentence. Why? Because over her shoulder, Fox News is on, and it catches my eye, and I was on it. And that was really bizarre. It was surreal. And I'm like literally stopped talking, and she looked at me and I go, I'm on Fox News behind you. And we turned around, and what happened is I was on Joy Reid's show Sunday, and we were talking about Donald Trump joking, and Fox News joking about Trump wanting a third or fourth term or president for life. And it was me and Joy Reid and Karine Jean-Pierre and Jill Weinbanks and Glenn Kirshner, and I think Paul Butler was on it, talking about how this is not a joke. This is not joking. As I said, it's priming, and Trump is how democracies die. And they played that clip and others from that panel on Fox News. It's not the first time I've been called up by Fox News. I don't care. It's fine. I'm happy about that. It was the first time I'm sitting here and organically I'm on the screen behind the guest. So that was kind of weird. Something else happened yesterday. I read a bunch of angry hate mail I got from people for an article that didn't merit that. It was not critical of Trump supporters. And it actually just stated constitutional facts that Donald Trump is 67 votes away from being an ex-president. And that unnerved the Trump world, and I got inundated, and I shared some of the angry emails to show you sort of a bigger picture here. That you had Trump supporters going to Congresswoman Slotnick's event and Adam Schiff's event and yelling at them, and at Adam Schiff's event going further than that, causing physical altercations. And one of the people I read his email, Brian, sent me an email today responding. And I read Brian's email, and I'll read it again. And there's cursing involved, but you have to hear the cursing to understand what's going on. He sent to me, because I talked about 67 votes, and he said, simply 67 votes, you are a fucking moron. Yeah, I'm 100% sure he isn't panicking to think someone published your shit unbelievable. And that was sort of, what I got. But then Brian emailed me today, or actually last night, I believe, and said, and I'm reading part of this because I think it's important. He said, I heard what you read. I was listening to your show, and it struck me as to where we are as a country right now. Your side has the heels dug in, and my side does too. Nobody is budging, and nobody is being convinced by the other side, not even close. We just bash the F out of each other. You have to believe it hurts us all in the end. And says, look, I don't actually think you're a moron. I just think you are someone who strongly believes in your side, just like I do. And I agree with literally nothing you say, but I do respect your right to say it and the energy you put into saying it. And he goes on to say, Trump supporters come from a wide swath of our society, and to marginalize them all is what got Trump elected in the first place. That's what he says. I don't necessarily agree with that last part, but I understand what he's getting at. And he also said, you shouldn't try to frame all of us as cursing, racist, bigot rednecks. Some of us are highly educated and well off. And he said that I'm not saying you have to be convinced by anything we say, but maybe listen, and it could take your brand to the next level. Just a thought, Brian. And here's the thing. And look, we're not going to do both sides are equal. Not true at all. But there is truth to the idea that we are both dug in. I get it. We believe we are morally in the right, and I believe that objectively. The problem is so do they. And his tone here is so vastly different. This tone is one that you can have a conversation and engage as fellow Americans who happen to disagree on issues. That's what we have to get back to as a country. It's not going to happen during Trump. There will not be any healing during the time Trump is president. I'm not going to do kumbaya. Not going to happen. I live in the real world. So, but I do, when I speak about Trump supporters, I fight the urge to paint them with the same brush they would paint every minority group. What I mean by that is they will define any minority group we are in by the worst in our community and say that's who we really are. I try my best to fight that urge when I speak of Trump supporters. But what I told Brian, my advice in my email to Brian was, hey, I know all Trump supporters are not bigots and racist and sexist. I know that's true. I'm concerned that they're not upset by that. But my point to him as a minority is if you don't want to be defined as that, you better speak out loudly when Trump is spewing bigotry and racism and sexism. Because if you don't, then we are going to paint you with a brush, even if it's unfair. And you know what? That's the same argument they would give to me as a Muslim American for years. Where are the Muslims in the street, the good Muslims, saying we don't agree with ISIS or Al-Qaeda at the time? Where are you? Well, you know what? My lessons from that experience is if you're a Trump supporter and you really aren't a white supremacist, in fact, you are disgusted by the white supremacist, but you like your IRAs going up or your 401k, and while you should be troubled by his bigotry and racism, sexism, somehow you've compartmentalized that, then you better at least speak out loudly when he does things wrong, or we're going to, like you did to me in my community, say you're at least complicit with it. And I think it's hard to find progressives now at this point, 3 years in, not to believe Trump supporters are at least complicit, if not completely on board. But I want to talk about, obviously, the big news. We are on impeachment eve. Trump did a 6-page letter today, which is just craziness, folks. And I'm not going to even waste time going over it because that's what it's all about. His idea is to try to shift the media coverage from his crimes and wrongdoing and his abuse of power to what's going on. But I will say this, that innocent people don't send panicky letters. Like if you smell right now, if you smell something in the air and that smells like poop, that's Trump's pants. Because he is panicking. And he should be, because Donald Trump tomorrow will be the third president in the history of this great republic to ever be impeached by the full House. He will be in every school book going forward. And, we talked about it last night. It's 67 votes, and he becomes an ex-president in the Senate. In reality, it's just 20 Republican votes. That's 20 people stand between him and the end of his presidency. And there's no appeal process. It's gone. If they really united and the Republicans and said, you know what? I really think I'm going to have this moment, and I really think this guy's a threat to our republic in the big picture. And I'm not up for re-election for 4 years, and no one will remember how I voted. Let's just get rid of him, let Mike Pence be president, and move on. Trump's got to worry about that. But here's my thing, and it's something listeners called me and tweeted and emailed me about. And I gave it more thought and I did some research on it. And as we all know, Donald Trump is a brazen criminal. He's one of the most brazen criminals you will find. And I say that not hyperbolically. This is a guy who the day after Robert Mueller testified on Capitol Hill, July 24th, 2019, about his investigation into Trump potentially conspiring with the Russians, the next day, he gets on the phone with the Ukrainian President Zelensky and asks that guy to help Trump and have the Ukraine help him in the 2020 election. There are few criminals this brazen. I've had Glenn Kirshner on, Jill Wine-Banks, members of Congress who are former prosecutors, who said they've never seen someone like this. So the question is, if the goal is really to prevent Trump from committing more crimes again in office, or at least holding him somewhat accountable and hoping that you're going to do the right thing to deter his future crimes, I can tell you this, approving the articles of impeachment and then sending him to the trial where they're going to have a rigged trial run by Moscow Mitch and Trump is exonerated and emboldened, that's not the way. Impeaching him is the way. Impeaching Donald Trump and then don't give it to the Senate. And then Donald Trump stuck the scarlet letter as an impeached president who could not be exonerated. And I want to go through that a little bit. When I say Donald Trump's a criminal, first of all, yesterday, the House Judiciary released a massive report based on their work on the Judiciary Committee hearings. It is a fabulous report. It's just too many pages, and they buried it for reasons I can't tell you because they released it a little after midnight on Monday, and they didn't highlight the pages that they should have highlighted. Some in the media did, and I went back and read it, but it barely got coverage. In this report, my friends, it talks about, in the House Judiciary Committee report, it's a formal report that came out on the basis to impeach Donald Trump. They say Trump committed, quote, multiple federal crimes, close quote. And as opposed to the articles of impeachment, which were much more general, abuse of power, obstruction of Congress, in this report, they did what I wish they did in the articles. They actually cited federal statutes, federal laws that Donald Trump violated, making it clear he's committed felonies, too, specifically. They point first to the criminal bribery statute, 18 U.S. Code Section 201. They write, while Trump's actions need not rise to the level of a criminal violation to justify impeachment, his conduct was here criminal. And they went in detail and through the elements of the federal bribery statute and concluded Trump's conduct fulfills all the elements of the federal anti-bribery statute. Then they turned to Trump committing wire fraud. Yes, wire fraud. 18 U.S. Code Section 1346, writing, Trump knowingly and willfully orchestrated a scheme to defraud the American people of his honest services as the President of the United States. The report states, after concluding Trump violated this statute, and this is stunning, they write, this offense alone is punishable by up to 20 years imprisonment, close quotes. This should all be in the articles of impeachment. In any event, my point is the House Judiciary is saying this guy is a criminal. They're making no bones about it. In fact, they don't do it like in a paragraph. They go through page after page explaining the law, the federal statute, and the case law to make an unbelievably compelling case that Donald Trump has committed crimes. And then they get to the big point. Deterrence. And how are we going to deter Donald Trump? And they write in their report, impeachment exists not to inflict personal punishment for past wrongdoing, but rather to protect against future presidential misconduct that would endanger democracy and the rule of law. So impeachment is not, in our criminal justice system, is to punish and deter. This is just deterrence. And they're saying we are trying to deter Donald Trump's future crimes. So the question is, purely from a strategy point of view, what is the best way to deter him from committing more crimes going forward? Forget politics. I'm talking protecting our nation from a criminal. Now, obviously, the only certain way to prevent Donald Trump from committing more crimes as president is his removal by the Senate. But that's not going to happen. We know that. And we learn more and more. I mean, first you've got Mitch McConnell. Very clearly, the fix is in. Here's Mitch McConnell last week saying, first of all, there's no chance Trump will be convicted. And then adding this, here's clip number 2.
And everything I do during this, I'm coordinating with White House counsel. There will be no difference between the president's position and our position as to how to handle this to the extent that we can. We don't have the kind of ball control on this that a typical issue, for example, comes over for the House. If I don't like it, we don't take it up. We have no choice but to take it up, but we'll be working through this process, hopefully in a fairly short period of time, in total coordination with the White House counsel's office and the people who are representing the president in the well of the Senate.
That's not what you have in a republic. That's third world country BS. Let's be honest. And then Mitch McConnell today took to the floor of the Senate to respond to Chuck Schumer's request yesterday to have 4 people testify, most notably current Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and former National Security Advisor John. I am not part of whatever drug deal Sondland and Mulvaney are cooking up Bolton. That guy. You really want him to testify and the American people to see it. What did Mitch McConnell say? Not going to happen. Here's clip number 3.
The Senate is meant to act as judge and jury, to hear a trial, not to rerun the entire fact-finding investigation because angry partisans rushed sloppily through it. The trajectory that the Democratic leader apparently wants to take us down, before he's even heard opening arguments, could set a nightmarish precedent for our institution. If the Senate volunteers ourselves to do House Democrats' homework for them, we will only incentivize an endless stream of dubious partisan impeachments in the future. And we will invite future Houses to paralyze future Senates with frivolous impeachments at will.
So, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is you're not going to have a full and fair trial. I mean, this is not a trial. This is a TV show we're going to have if it happens. So, you've got McConnell. The fix is in. And, of course, to actually remove Trump, it'll take 20 Republicans to put America over their party. Translation, never happening. You might get a few, but you're not going to get 20. We know that. So, what's going to happen is Donald Trump will be impeached tomorrow. And if all goes along the trajectory we are seeing right now, they will give the articles to the Senate. They will have a trial. Donald Trump will be acquitted. And you know what that is? A normal person might be like, wow, I just got away with this. I'm not going to do anything bad. But we know that's not Trump, who literally called the Ukrainian president the day after Mueller testified and is committing more crimes. So what this means for Donald Trump, and I'm trying to think like a criminal sociopath. It's hard to do that, but I'm trying my best. In Donald Trump's mind, it means he's untouchable. Mueller didn't get him. Impeachment didn't get him. That means there are no limits to what Trump will do between now and 2020 to win re-election. In fact, I just played the clip earlier from the Colbert joke where he's defending Rudy Giuliani, asking Ukrainian nationals to help his campaign in total violation of the law. What Trump does is, instead of showing any remorse or pulling back on crimes, he doubles and triples down on crimes. We've never seen this. And it's because he can't be indicted because he would have been indicted by now. And he knows that. So to me, and I want to get your view on this, of course, the best chance to possibly, and I say possibly, deter Trump from future misconduct and crimes is to have the House impeach him tomorrow and not send the articles over. And in essence, that means these articles are there. And if Trump does any more wrongdoing, the House then has hearings on those specific instances of misconduct and crimes, drafts more articles, and maybe then collectively we have 4 or 5 by March or April or June. There's at least one where 20 Republican senators say, we got to go. This guy's got to go. And you might say, well, does the U.S. Constitution allow the House Democrats to do that? That's an excellent question. And here's the interesting thing about impeachment. The U.S. Constitution answers so few questions about what you have to do in an impeachment. It gives the sole power to impeach with the House. And then with the Senate, it says they have the sole power to trial impeachments. And other than a few things like the Supreme Court Chief Justice acts as the presiding officer during the trial, there's nothing demanded by our Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution that says when the House impeaches a president, the trial must start in X amount of days, or even the trial must follow. No, it's not. What does that mean? That means it's going to go to the Senate rules on impeachment, which were drafted in 1986. They're still the same Senate rules. And these rules very clearly do not say that once impeachment articles are passed by the House, a trial in the Senate must commence. It does not say that. In fact, there's a condition that must be met before before the Senate even has to act. And you might be saying, well, what's that condition? Well, here it is. And I'm trying to take out some of the legalese, and they wrote it like they were like Alexander Hamilton in 1780 or something. The way the language they used was ridiculous. But what it says is that when the impeachment articles are passed by the House, the House then, and here the condition, they have to notify the Senate that the impeachment managers have been appointed. And the impeachment managers are essentially prosecutors. They'll be who the Democrats pick. So once the House notifies the Senate impeachment managers have been appointed, the impeachment managers are then directed to carry articles of impeachment to the Senate. That's literally in the language. They are directed to carry articles of impeachment to the Senate, where the Senate will receive them after the House managers declare they are, quote, ready to exhibit articles of impeachment, close quote. So only after these articles of impeachment are presented by House managers to the Senate is the Senate obligated to act. And when the House managers are appointed and they come with the articles of impeachment and it goes to the bar of the Senate, that's what it literally says, below the bar of the Senate is obligated to act. Quote, then the presiding officer of the Senate shall inform the managers that the Senate will take proper order on the subject of the impeachment, close quotes. So that they have to, the House leadership has to appoint managers who have to physically take the articles of impeachment and walk over to the Senate, to the bar of the Senate, and hand it to them, and then the secretary of the Senate will tell the presiding officer, look who's here, and they said they're ready, so we got to act. And it actually literally says in the rules, like by noon, like the next day, they got to start doing things. So the bottom line is, you don't appoint the House managers. No one walks over the articles of impeachment. No one says they're ready. The Senate doesn't have to act. Now, here's the real world we live in. Mitch McConnell doesn't care about tradition. He doesn't care about anything. That's why there's not Justice Merrick Garland. So some are going to say, well, Mitch McConnell can say the House in the Constitution says they have the sole power of impeachment and that Senate shall have the sole power to trial impeachment. So if you impeach the president, then we are going to start our proceedings because he wants to hold a rigged trial to exonerate Donald Trump. Here is the problem with that, because he could do that. I'm not kidding. You've got to think like a power-hungry monster like Mitch McConnell. He could say, nope, they impeached President Trump. We have an obligation to try him. Here's the wrinkle. The prosecutor in the Senate trial are the House managers. If none are appointed, there's no one there to prosecute Donald Trump. You can't have a trial with just Trump's lawyers and no prosecutors. And there's no contemplation in any rules that the senators can then pick up the slack and become the House managers, because they can't, because they're the jury. So checkmate, Mitch McConnell. You can't do anything but go on TV and whine and think about how Trump will be whining forever because he is not exonerated. He will be impeached and it'll just be sitting there and waiting. And they continue investigation in the House and they go to court to compel people like John Bolton and Mick Mulvaney and Don McGahn and others to testify. And Trump is watching it and freaking going, this is unreal. Forget it, 6 pages later, you're going to see him going ballistic for months. And folks, that is great. That is some part of holding him accountable. If the goal is to detain him from future crimes, him freaking out is the only way, because he knows everyone's watching him. Still, with this going on, he is empowering Rudy Giuliani to violate our campaign finance laws by having Rudy Giuliani travel to foreign countries, have foreign nationals help the Trump campaign. He doesn't care about it, but it's going to make it, I believe, a little harder. I can't tell you if it stops Trump. Trump is a sociopath. He's a criminal sociopath. He does not believe in our Constitution. He does not believe in our rule of law. He doesn't believe in our values. And, Lindsey Graham said all of that in 2015. We've played that clip a few times on the show. I'm just quoting Lindsey Graham. So what do you think? Do you think the House Democrats, they should do impeachment tomorrow? No doubt. I'm really happy they're doing it. I wish there were more articles, but we can't change that. But what do you think of this strategy? Or do you fear that it looks too gimmicky and the American people go, this is just a game now? It's not really serious, because if it was serious, they'd let the trial go on and let whatever happens there. That's my only concern, that it plays out like that. And people, the American public in the middle, who are like, I'm not sure about this, they go, the Democrats are playing games. If it was really about crimes he committed, you would have the trial in the Senate. Whatever happens, happens. Or I honestly believe deeply this is the right approach if the goal is deter future crimes. I don't know politically if it's the right answer. I really don't. I'm trying to protect our nation from Donald Trump. And I can assure you, a trial in the Senate where he's exonerated will embolden him to commit more crimes, because that's who Trump is. Trump has never been held accountable his entire life for his wrongdoing, from discriminating against African Americans, to violating New York State lobbying laws, to calling for the death penalty for the Central Park Five, is abusing women, bragging in Access Hollywood, they bragging about sexually assaulting women. The man confessed to crimes and still got elected president. Why would he think he can't get away with everything? So perhaps you're going to say that it's not going to deter him. Let's have the trial, put this behind us, focus on 2020. That's fair. So I want to hear from you. Or do you think this approach, which has been bubbling up now and percolating, and this really came from listeners who were emailing me about this and tweeting to me, what do you think? And I watched Lawrence Tribe last night, who flip-flopped on this issue. Up until last night, he was opposed to this. And then he goes, you know what? If there's not going to be a fair trial in the Senate, why have it? Just impeach and hold the articles. And I agree, because I was on the fence. I'm like, I don't know. It looks like we're going to be playing games, or we're being too cutesy and gimmicky. Because this will depend on the Democrats making a compelling argument to our fellow Americans. We are doing this because Moscow Mitch is rigging the trial, and we want to hold the guy accountable. We're hoping this deters him from future crimes, because we're ready to act and add more articles at any time. That's a heavy lift for our fellow Democrats in the House to do that job in the media, because some of them are good with the media and some are not. So I'd love to hear from you. You're my guest right to the top of the hour, 866-997-4748. Be right back after this.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
I think Trump clips that they play on the media should come with a health warning saying that if you watch this, you'll get dumber.
Never